Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the video where I rank every episode of Season 2 of The Haunting Hour. If you've not watched my channel before, I do reaction videos to every episode of The Haunting Hour. I've done all of Season 1, all of Season 2, and I've ranked all of Season 1. You'll be able to see it all on a playlist on my channel. So Series 2 had 18 episodes, and there was two-parters within that. So I'm going to be ranking it from number 16 to number 1 because I'm counting the two-parters as one episode. I hope you enjoy the video. As I say every time I do a ranking video, these are just my opinions. If you don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine. My opinions are very rarely in line with the majority of people's opinions anyway. So just feel free to leave some comments down below. Maybe leave your ranking as well. Or just your top 3 episodes, your bottom 3 episodes. And let's get discussing it down below because this is a really fun show to watch. And anthology shows, just by nature, that every episode is so different, can often have such a wide variety of people that love the same episodes and hate different episodes. And everyone's ranking is going to be different, so be polite, be respectful to other people, leave your thoughts down below, and let's jump into my ranking of every episode of Season 2 of The Haunting Hour. My least favourite episode of Season 2, in 16th place, I have chosen The Hole. The Hole was a very basic story about a family that moved into a new house, and it was a bit ooky spooky, some ghostly things going on. I think the main problem I had with this episode is just that on the most part, it was very generic, and wasn't massively interesting. There was a good little bit about backstory with the past family that lived there and how the ending of the episode kind of linked them together in that history was repeating itself. But to be honest, this episode to me was very forgettable, and one of the episodes of this season, which it's been months since I've watched, but I can tell you quite a lot about it. This one is very forgettable. It was quite generic for me. I don't think there's any episode of the season that I hated or that I didn't like at all, but just this one for me was probably the most forgettable and boring overall. And so for that reason, I don't have a lot to say about it, which is why for me, my last place episode of Season 2 of The Haunting Hour is The Hole. In 15th place, I've chosen Bad Feng Shui. I was looking forward to this episode when I first watched it because I had a couple of comments, or at least one comment at least, saying, oh, please react to Bad Feng Shui. So I presumed it was one of the episodes that people really liked. Although from looking at IMDb, it's like the lowest rated of the season, I believe. I rewatched it again recently to try and just memorise some of the episodes that I've forgotten bits about, but I liked the moral of the story. A girl who doesn't really listen to her mum, who disobeys her mum's orders, doesn't clean her room, especially in some of the Asian cultures where you really do just do as your parents tell you. This girl was really acting out, and so the message of the story, which was basically to appreciate your mum and to listen to what she has to say, she wants the best for you, all that, was really good. Where it kind of fell down for me was the villain. I didn't think it looked particularly... It looked interesting, but looked a bit silly at the same time. Like, it was like a human-sized body with a snake head and, like, these weird snake arms. And when it kind of got shown a lot, it was just knocking a lot of things onto the floor and waving its arms around a lot like this. And then to defeat it, she picked up the violin and started playing the violin because her mum liked the violin. It was just really silly, and that ruined, to me, what could have been a good, strong episode in terms of its message. It just got quite silly, and... yeah, I don't know, I wasn't taken by the villain, the bad guy, which is a shame because only creatures and interesting creature features kind of things I quite like. But for this one, there was just something about it that looked, that I didn't take to, and the message could have been done in a better way without the silly scene where she was chasing the bad guy playing the violin. It just looked a bit too silly for my liking. In 14th place, I have gone for Stage Fright. This episode could have been awesome. An episode that's got a lot of musical numbers in it is a good idea. And an episode that takes place on stage doing a play is a good idea. And an episode where characters get taken out one by one and kidnapped is a good idea. Because it plays on a lot of those like Macbeth, cursed plays, we shouldn't be doing this play sort of tropes. And also plays on R.L. Stein tropes like Phantom of the Auditorium, people that are doing a stage play, things go wrong. Love all that. And I love the effort that they put into creating songs and singing and dancing and whatnot. Where I think this episode falls down is as one of the comments I've said recently on YouTube, there's a lack of focus in this episode. Because there's so many different main characters. I know we've got the boy and the girl on the main two, but there's a huge cast of characters. And so because of that, it's hard to kind of always follow... Not follow, but it's hard to kind of care about the protagonist too much. And when it came to like someone was kidnapping people who's the bad guy, you presume it's going to be one of the characters that you already know, which would have made sense and would have been a good twist. But it wasn't. It was some random person that we never met. Now, it kind of linked to it because they were doing a play of Hansel and Gretel, and the character that was kidnapping everybody was the real witch from the real Hansel and Gretel come to tell her story the way it should have been told. That's an interesting idea that, again, I think would have worked better if it was a character that we'd already met. That would have worked really well. But because it was just this random woman who'd appeared out of nowhere, never met her before, and we'd already, for me at least, lost kind of care because there were so many characters to look at, to focus on, to pay attention to. I didn't really know what kind of, if I cared if they won or not, or who the bad guy was and whatnot. Yeah, I just think ultimately the episode had a lack of focus, and for that reason fallen flat when it could have been a really interesting and unique episode of the show. In 13th place, quite low down, my first two-parter that's pretty low, The Most Evil Sorcerer, Part 1 and 2. This is definitely my least favourite of the two-parters that we've seen so far. It had an interesting concept. A boy and a girl were living with this sorcerer in, it was kind of like medieval sort of times, that kind of, living in the cabin in the woods, and we do spells and witchcraft with and there's candles and whatnot. And I liked all that. I think the actual vibe of the episode was good. What did I not like about it? I don't know. I just think I didn't overly like the villains in the episode. I thought they were quite predictable. And we had the bad main guy, but then there was a bad woman in the forest who we actually thought was going to be a good guy. She was going to help them defeat the bad guy, but then she was the bad guy all along. Interesting ideas that I don't think were necessarily executed particularly well. And the ending in particular I thought was really silly when they didn't even destroy her, they'll defeat her. She just woke up loads of time later and did this whole weird arm movement that I'll never forget because it just made me laugh. I thought there could be more interesting twists with the characters. I kept talking about in the episode, I thought one of the girls was going to turn out to be a villain. She wasn't. And I don't know, there was just something about this episode that was a really great concept. And I just think they missed the mark on it. And I'm not sure what they could have necessarily done to make it amazing. But maybe it made one villain consistent across the two episodes. But I don't know, for me, there was just something disjointed about it. It didn't click together particularly well. I hated the ending. And just should have been a twist where one of the kids was going to go for the power as well. And that's when they were there all along. They were undercover to get that power. That would have made more sense. That would have been a very R.L. Stine twist. And I would have loved that. In 12th place, I've gone for the episode Headshot. I enjoyed this episode. To be fair, like I said before, there's no episodes in the season that I really disliked. Sometimes with like other anthology shows that I do, like Are You Afraid of the Dark, now and again there's an episode where I'm like, that was really boring. This season didn't have any that I totally was bored by, so it's hard to find a lot of bad things in all of them. So every episode I enjoyed at least a little bit. The problem I had with Headshot, which was the one about the girl who was going to wanted to be a model, and so started to kind of turn into this kind of like bratty, rude woman with an attitude, and she was rude to all her friends and screwed her friends over so that she could progress and whatnot. Why I rated this so low is it's a very cliche storyline that we've seen in. There's an episode of You Afraid of the Dark that I've got coming out, at least on Patreon soonish anyway, that's got a similar vibe. It's a girl who wants to be prettier and wear nicer things and do all this fancy stuff to be better at school, to impress the guy she likes, and by making deals and making these agreements to get all this stuff that she wants, she starts to become more disfigured, more ugly in the long run. So it's a very cliche story that we've seen in media a lot. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means that I knew exactly where it was going. The performance by Ariel Winter was good. I like her as an actress. I liked her character. I thought she was good. I liked her performance as she started to turn more evil. I thought the photograph thing was silly, where we just kept seeing the pictures and they just kept, like, a picture would appear on a phone of her as a model, and then it would just turn into like a picture of her looking like with some makeup on. I thought that was silly. But I liked the villain, like what they were up to. The ending sort of made sense, sort of didn't to me. It made more sense the second time I watched it. And it was an okay episode. I just thought it was a story that I'd seen time and time again. And they didn't do anything new with that storyline, which I think let it down just a little bit. In 11th place, an episode that I think other people will probably have quite low, even lower than this, is Night of the Mummy. I'm swayed by the fact that I said, like, when I watched the episode, I said it, I love Egyptian-themed movies, episodes of these kind of TV shows, mummy stories, I like Egyptian history, things like that. So when there's something like this, I'm also more biased towards it because I like the subject matter. Now, the story itself was fine. The bad guy, though, was really obvious from the first scene they appeared in, which was his mum. If she always acted like that from day one, that's really suspicious. But She was really sus, she was really shady, obviously a bad guy. And I just think the twist at the end didn't necessarily land as I think they wanted it to. Because you felt sorry for this kid, his mum was obviously evil, he felt very alone, he talked about how he felt alone and like different from people, and obviously he had friends that because he had this girlfriend that he was very close to, and ultimately he turned out he was the brother of one of the pharaohs, and they sent him back in time. Oh no, they reunited him with his pharaoh brother, and then they died. And so it was just like, okay, so you got a main character that you root for. Fair enough, you find out that he's not exactly who you thought he was. He was a pharaoh from the Egyptian times, but then by the end of the episode he's dead, and the friend has the amulet. And I liked the Egyptian museum and seeing the artifacts and the Egyptian history and the hieroglyphics, and I love all that kind of stuff. That was really interesting to me. But the story as a whole did fall down a lot throughout and didn't necessarily all come together as nicely as I would have hoped. And I think people don't necessarily love it from looking at the comments on YouTube. I don't think it's anyone's favourite episode by a long shot. I enjoyed it. I just think the ending could have been tweaked just so that it worked a lot better for the characters and made more sense. Because the first time I watched it, it confused me. And I would have liked it if the really suspicious, evil mother and the guy from the museum, I would have preferred it if they were not that necessarily they were bad guys, they were guardians of this dude. But I would have liked it if they kind of got stopped and that the guy got to live his happy life with his friends in modern times. I think that would have been more satisfying. But hey ho, that's just my opinion. Okay, on to the top 10. In 10th place, I have chosen Brush with Madness, the episode with Dylan Minnette and the artist. I liked the creativity of this episode. I thought all the drawings on the wall and the comic books and how they were all coming to life, and the pictures that he was drawing with the same camera shots that we saw. I thought that was all brilliant, really creative, really fun. I like the comic books and nerdy stuff as well, so the fact that he loved this illustrator and ended up getting his brushes and it was bringing this villain to life from this comic book, I thought was all really cool. Didn't really like the friend in the episode. I thought kind of irritating, and there was some like red flags throughout the episode. I'm like, girl, get away while you can, like this is obviously nothing's good happening here. But I thought it was really fun. And whilst I thought it was creatively cool and I liked the characters and I liked the villainous, like, shadowy figure that was following them all around, the reason this isn't any higher is just because there's episodes that I preferred more than this. All the episodes pretty much from this one up are episodes that I really enjoy to different levels, and they're all really good, so I don't have a lot of bad things to say about them. But this one's just lower because I preferred others more. And the ending for this one was confusing because I know that the show likes to have a twist, and they had the twist that the main character got kidnapped by the villain, but the villain then revealed himself to be the main character in a costume that he'd brought to life. But then we also saw that the artist had put them in a comic book. It kind of didn't always make sense. I think it was meant to be twisty and kind of open to interpretation, mess with your mind a little bit. I thought it went for that, and it did that well, because I was like, what? When I first watched it. But yeah, that's why in 10th place I have gone for Brush with Madness. Really good episode, just not my favourite of the season. In 9th place, I've chosen Swarming Norman, the 3rd episode of season 2. This episode resonated with me a lot, as someone who in high school got bullied quite a lot, and didn't know a way to fight back, and couldn't defend myself, and had no support network at the time at least. This episode resonated with me. I know what it's like to be in school and be bullied. I want your revenge. And I thought it was really fun that this praying mantis guy who was leading all these insects kind of became his friend and helped him get revenge on this bully. I thought it all worked really well. But then the main character got really annoying, and he felt like he was better than the insects. He's like, you do what I say, and if I want to stop you, I will. And obviously killed one of the insects, which turned them all against him. Rightly so, and I thought that was good. I like the fact that the insects helped him, supported him, were on his side, but the second that he stepped out of line, they were like, nah, you're going down. And I loved that. That was so good. It was so powerful. And it was really fun because we got to see all the insects coming out after him right near the end of the episode, and he couldn't find a way to stop it. And so the episode had a good message with the fact that he was helping get back at his bullies, which I think most of us would like to if you got bullied in school. But also, don't abuse your power. Like, you got what you wanted. You got the guy scared. You got the guy running. Don't then act like you're the bully. Don't become the bully that you want to stop, because ultimately it's going to work out against you. And so that was fun. Good message in the episode. Really resonated with me. But the main character was kind of annoying, right? Like, he was kind of a bit of an irritating character. In 8th place, I've chosen the 7th episode, Sick. Another episode that resonated with me a lot because I spent a lot of time when I was a kid sick at home, spending a lot of time in bed, eating food. I read a lot of books when I was younger, watched a lot of telly, and just spent a lot of time just being sick. And what I thought this episode did really well was, whilst it wasn't necessarily the most memorable episode of the show, what I think it actually did really well was the paranoia of the what's real, what's not. Is there really a monster in the house? Are the people really talking to him through the TV? Is it all just a hallucination in his head? Are there people outside quarantining him because there's something inside the house they're trying to stop? Is that fake? Is that real? Because it all looked like it was fake at points, but then it would come back. And then it all looked like it was in his head and he was having like a fever dream. And his mum came back and was like, no, like, you were just wrestling with like, the Hoover. There is things on the wall. It was like from decorators or whatever. And it's all just in your head, which I thought, okay, that's really interesting. But then there was a twist again where he saw the people on the TV talking to him. So I think the paranoia, what's real, what's not, worked so well for this episode. I thought it was creepy throughout and had some good effects. Like, there was like, I remember like the walls like running with water and stuff. There was some really cool effects throughout when he was getting really sick. And I just really like the fact that, again, it's open to interpretation. Do you think he was really sick and just imagining it all? Or was there really something in his house that they had to contain? And that meant that he might have to get separated from his mum permanently. And that was quite traumatic, to be fair. So, yeah, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that episode because, yeah, I really like the whole messing with your mind scenario. In 7th place, the 5th episode of the season, Pumpkinhead. This, to me, is a very typical R.L. Stine story. People break into somewhere they should not go or steal something they should not steal, and the person that they stole from or the house that they break into, that person's house, they will get revenge on them. This is so Goosebumps. This is so up my alley because it was very creepy. There's this creepy farm with these pumpkins, with a creepy guy that lives there. Don't steal the pumpkins, but they do. Don't break into his house, but they do. And especially because like they steal a pumpkin and then these pumpkin-head creatures come after them. And I think that's why it made me really nostalgic as well, because of, obviously, if you know a lot of Goosebumps, you know Attack of the Jack-O'-Lanterns, people with pumpkin heads. Obviously, that's a very different type of story, but it definitely gave me vibes of that. Definitely took me back to being a kid and watching that episode and reading that book, because I used to love that one. That's a really good one for me because I like Halloween. And just the visuals of the pumpkin-headed creatures. And there was a lot of tension in the episode when they stuck into the guy's house and was sneaking around and they saw these creatures, they didn't know what to do, and they found the creepy heads in the floor outside. I know there's a sequel to this episode, so I'm excited to see where they take it and what they do with the sequel, because I thought this was a really good episode, really strong horror premise, but I wanted to know more about why is he doing this? Like, why is he turning people into pumpkin-head creatures? What is the purpose? And hopefully we'll find out more next time. But this was fun for me. I really enjoyed this. It just made me feel so nostalgic for the old Goosebumps books. So if people rate this lower, I totally understand that. But for me, this was a good children's horror story. Really spooky at times, really fun. In 6th place, I chose the first two-parter, Creature Feature, Part 1 and 2. I thought this was brilliant. I have to commend the show for really going all out there with this 50s style movie that they created. And obviously, we took place in modern times, and a guy got sucked into like this 50s style movie that he loved. They really went all out with the set design, with the over-the-top cheesy acting, like, oh no, what am I to do? That kind of acting. And the over-the-top bad guy, Dr. Mengele, was it? I think he was called. I thought the acting was superb, particularly from the doctor and the girl in the movie, and I liked the main character as well. And the creature feature effects throughout with the tick, and when the boy started turning, all things were growing out of his face, and he was hung on the ceiling with the stuff dripping down. I thought it was great. I would have liked it if it was scarier, because I think that's where this episode will drop down a few places for me, because I had it really high, because I thought they really went all out, and the practical effects were incredible, and it was just a really fun episode. I'd have enjoyed it if it was scarier, but I guess the whole point of the 50s vibe was that kind of era of horror movies was very cheesy and over the top, which worked well again for this episode. The end of the episode, I'm not sure if I love the fact that the boy just chose to stay inside the movie with a girl that he fancied rather than be with his friends and his family. He just left them all to be in this movie. I don't think I like that. I think that's, I don't know, just not satisfying to me as an ending. Like, I get he wants to be with this girl, but also you're very limited in your life. Like, you're only living in that movie. So what happens when the movie's turned off? Do you still live? I just think it would have made more sense if maybe she came out of the movie and lived in our world. That would have been fun. And then we could have like a little cliffhanger where the Doctor was still out as well, and he was on the loose, trying to create more ticks. But really good two-parter, really well created, really well acted, a really strong way to open the season. This was really fun. So in 5th place, I put episode 12, Dreamcatcher. This was basically the Haunted Hours version of Freddy Krueger. There was a villain, if you went to sleep, would come after you. Obviously, you had to cut the Dreamcatchers up first, but the villain was so creepy, really well designed. Initially you just saw this white face, black eyeshadow, really close to the camera, and it was kind of spooky looking. But then once we saw the scale of it, when it was in a room and it was massive, huge legs, and the way it moved, it was horrible. It was like skitter around, it was really creepy. I didn't like that at all. That really made the episode for me, that villain. I thought it was so creepy. Obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my favourite films anyway, and I loved the kind of references to that. But yeah, it was so creepy. Didn't like the bully girl, but you're not meant to. But then I thought it was quite fun that her plan kind of works against her because she went and slept somewhere else because she was going to let the people be in trouble. But that ultimately went against her because she fell asleep and the bad guy came after her in the Spider-Man at the end, whereas everyone else got out and escaped. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, just the main thing that I took away from this episode, as well as I like camp stories. You'll know that from watching much of my channel. Camping stories hit a really big spot for me because there's just those stories, I just love it. Camping stories, Egyptian stories are usually two of my favourite ones, as well as ones that take place in schools. It just takes me back to being a kid and reading those Goosebumps books. So I loved it for that. I loved the villain, thought it was really spooky. That was Dreamcatcher, really fun and spooky episode of Haunted Hour. Okay, episode 4, we're almost at the top 3 now. I went for Mascot. This was great. This episode was really fun. Basically about a school mascot that is old, dirty, doesn't really move as much as well as it maybe should do. They want something a bit more upbeat, a bit more modern, and so they get rid of it and hire a new or do auditions for a new mascot. But what they don't realise is this mascot is not a person in a costume. It's a real living creature that lives in the basement and does not want to be replaced. It's a really interesting concept, really spooky concept that reminds me of something like Stephen King would come up with. Turning something very mundane like a school mascot into a villain is very Stephen King. Goosebumps as well, like R.L. Stine is very good at that kind of stuff. So I really liked the mascot. What was it called? Big Yellow? I think it was called Big Yellow. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it was called. The design of it was really cool. Kind of looked a bit like a Muppet, but a big, fluffy mascot that had a sad look on his face. And just, you felt for him. Weirdly enough, you felt for this creature that was being replaced. And you could tell that all he wanted to do was dance that little silly dance and perform at the basketball games. That's all he wanted. He didn't want anything exciting. He lived in his little basement room downstairs where he practiced his little dance on the radio. But that's all he wanted, and he was being replaced. But you never really found out what that creature was, which is good in some ways because you can make it up like your own mythology around it. But also left me with questions because what is it? It can eat people because it ate the friend. And I like the bit at the end where there's two main guys in it that are the friends. One's ringing, one's fine where the other one is, but he's been eaten by the mascot, and you can hear the phone ringing in the belly. I like it because he was quite creepy. Something that was big and cuddly and sad looking. Just the way it looked at people sometimes was really creepy. When they said something they didn't like, it would just stare at them with his like blank expression on its face. That was really creepy. I thought it was a really good design and just a fun episode. Like, I had a great time with it and watched it again semi-recently because I wanted to rewatch it. And I just think the mascot itself was great. Really good. That's why in 4th place I've chosen Mascot. Okay, moving on to the top 3 now. Hopefully we have some similar ones at the top 3 as well, but it's okay if we don't. But in 3rd place I chose one that I think some people have at the top is Fright, episode 4 of season 2. This was very different for the Haunting Hour. A very different episode. This was more dark, more sad. Not really about this big creature that's attacking people or how do we stop this big bad guy? This was a boy on a plane sat next to this guy, and he get this adult who he kind of bonds with over the course of the flight. Death is behind them, a few seats back. And ultimately what we learned throughout the course of the episode is this guy died, his body's down below in the cargo hold, and this person, this death, is coming to take him and make him move on. And he's just too afraid. And the episode is all about this guy accepting that he's dead and moving on. Because if he doesn't move on, the plane's going haywire, it's going to crash. And the boy, this young boy, has to help this man deal with his mortality, which for a kid show is so dark. And when I first watched it, I think because it was so different and so sad, I didn't like it. I'm like, no, I don't want to see this. This just makes me sad. This is not what I wanted from the show. I just want to have fun. But actually, rewatching it again and appreciating it for what it is, it's fantastic. It's really well acted. It's well designed. It's well choreographed. Just the shots they use of them in the foreground with death in the background at times. And this was really good, really powerful, and a really important episode because it just touches a thing that not a lot of kid shows will touch in anthologies about death and acceptance of death and moving on and how you have to move on for the sake of like other people and do the right thing. And this was really good. This was really powerful, and I think a lot of people may have this as their favourite episode of the season, and I'm not surprised. It was a really powerful episode. In second place, number 2, I went for, drumroll, the season finale, The Return of Lily D. I love Lily D. My favourite episodes of season 1 was Really You Part 1 and 2. Loved her. Love that doll. She's creepy as F. She's one creepy doll. And so when I knew that there was a sequel, I was excited, but I was nervous to see what she did this time because the whole point of this Lily D doll was that she was a doll that was made to look like that specific girl from the first episode. So I was intrigued to see where they went with it. And they went down a different route. It wasn't her trying to replace the daughter to be part of that family. It was that she wants to be taken care of. She's not got away with her plan. She's been thrown away. She's been discarded. She's been, left in the gutter. She now wants to be taken care of. And so this girl was taking care of her until Lily D saw this girl take care of something else. And it wasn't even that the doll was being replaced. The girl just saw a bird that was injured, and she helped nourish the bird so that it could be okay again. And Lily D did not like that at all. She wants to be taken care of. She wants to be like the baby, basically. This is not okay. And so she started attacking. And she's creepy. She's really creepy. I just think she's a brilliant designed doll. Like Uncanny Valley. She doesn't look real, but she looks human enough that it's off-putting. And there were just some really cool shots like her on the stair lift going up, and some really cool imagery of the doll. At the window was so scary. What I will say is I think the ending was a little sudden. I think they could have done a better ending for it. And whereas some episodes, the ending does ruin it and make it jump down a few notches, this one it didn't, because I love the lady so much that it's just that last few seconds I just like, you could have done something better there. It was just a very quick ending, a very sudden ending, and I think they could have done something a bit more exciting with it. But Lily D is great. I'm sad there's no more Lily D episodes. I would have liked it if she came back a few times like Slappy and Goosebumps, and just she was a recurring villain. Every now and again, every season, there's a Lily D episode. That would have been cool. But yeah, love her. I want that doll for the house. But in second place, The Return of Lily D. Now, if you're keeping track, if you're paying attention, you'll know exactly what's in my first place. In first place, I chose episode 11 of season 2 of The Haunting Hour, Scarecrow. This episode, man, this episode was dark and really spooky. Just these people disappearing, this silence everywhere, the lack of noise, this guy that was really ominous and selling this poem, there's a real poem. There's something about silence and lack of noise that's so scary. There's just something about silence which is creepy. And sometimes it can be really nice to be silent, but there's just something about a lack of not just people talking, but there's no music, there's no traffic noises, there's no animal noises. It's not like now if I go silent, I can hear birds and trees outside. I can hear that it's starting to rain a little bit. I can hear the odd car go past on the street over there. I can hear noises, but a complete silence is unusual. And then the ending that I saw, which I preferred to, there's two endings. I saw the ending where the boy became the Scarecrow, was so dark for a kid show, because he became a Scarecrow. The rest of the world was wiped out, and this villain turned the main guy into a Scarecrow, so that them two as Scarecrows could sit and watch the world end together. This is a kid show. Where we've got silly episodes about witches, and we've got silly episodes, what other episodes we've got? School mascots that come to life, people with pumpkins on their heads. We've got episodes about, I don't know, people wanting to be in fashion. This episode ended with people waiting for the end of the world. This boy, this innocent boy, who's done nothing wrong, who's lost his family and friends and everybody, has just been made to sit on a post and watch the world end and can't move or anything. I hated that, but I loved it. I loved it because it was so dark and kind of gave me like an existential crisis, and it really stuck with me. Ever since I watched it, that episode stuck in my head. So I knew that it's unlikely that any episode of The Haunted Hour was going to beat it, because it got so deep in here, the whole Scarecrow ending, that it just freaked me out, and I loved it. They really executed something really powerfully at the end of the world, but also this innocent kid, being made to watch it. The stakes are usually quite low on these shows. It's just like the life of one person's affected or whatnot, but this is the end of the world. Very dark, very brutal, but amazing. That was my ranking of all 18 episodes of Season 2 with the two-parters from 16 to 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the ranking of every episode of Season 2. Do you agree with any of it? Do you not agree? Do you think mine are mostly the same as yours? Are mine completely different to yours? I'm really excited to hear from all of you. Let me know why as well. Like, what is it about episodes that I didn't like that you did, and vice versa? I found that really fascinating. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be cracking on very soon with Season 3 of The Haunting Hour, and that starts with another two-parter, and it's also a very long season. So let's get started on Season 3 very soon. As always, my name is Scott. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Take a look at the Patreon link down below. And I'll see you all very soon for Season 3 of The Haunting Hour. Bye guys, take care, stay safe.